And welcome back to the Ops Show, where we bring you the trials and tribulations, the automation collaborations from the world of DevOps and the greater developer experience. I'm your host, as always, Tristan Pollock. And in our best show yet, we have Fletcher Richman, founder of Halp, which was recently acquired in May of this year by Atlassian. Very excited to hear about this story. Welcome to the show, Fletcher.
Thanks, Tristan. Yeah, excited to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on. Like we always like to start out is kind of your code story, or like how did you get into tech? How did you start Halp? What were some of the steps that led up to that?
Yeah, totally. So I was born and raised in Colorado. I went to the University of Colorado Boulder, and I was originally studying environmental engineering. I thought I was going to do clean tech stuff and like save the world. And maybe I'll still do that, hopefully one day. And I ended up doing like the intro class to environmental engineering, and basically found out that it was like wastewater management and just not at all what I was looking for. And so then I actually transferred into electrical engineering because I figured, okay, I don't want to do the environmental part, but maybe I can design solar panels and I can design like windmills and stuff like that. And I thought that would be the path into the clean tech world.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was kind of studying some of that stuff, I did like an internship at IBM and a lot of the big company traditional things that you do in college. And I had a startup idea that I thought was a genius startup idea and got super excited about it. And I've always been the kind of guy who just like jumps in head first. And so I ended up jumping in, like creating a company, teaching myself some HTML and CSS. The very first coding class that I took for electrical engineering was a C class, and I absolutely hated it. Like I was like, programming is the worst thing ever. I'm never, ever going to write code. I hate this so much. And I was learning circuits and like a bunch of other stuff in electrical engineering that I actually kind of liked. And then through my company that I was working on, which was like a classic college startup, it was like Yelp for frats and restaurants on campus. Like find the coolest restaurant on campus or the coolest like frat to be a part of. Just your classic college kid idea. And I was doing HTML and CSS. I almost started teaching myself a little bit of PHP because I ended up building the site in Drupal. If like folks, I'm sure there's people out there still using Drupal, but like back then I was picking between WordPress and Drupal, and I was like, Drupal is the future, man. I promise you, it's all going to be Drupal. And so I built out this thing in Drupal, and then I was trying to write like a PHP. I was thinking about learning PHP to write like an Instagram script so I could pull Instagram data automatically to like feed into the frat feed or whatever. And I met actually the guys from DigitalOcean who were in Techstars at that point.
Oh, wow.
It was just like 4 of them, and they were in Techstars Boulder. And I was at this like open house at Techstars Boulder, and they're like, you should check out Ruby on Rails. It's pretty cool. Like it's like the next cool thing. And this was like 2012. And so I decided, all right, I'm not going to learn PHP. I'm going to learn Ruby and Ruby on Rails.
Yeah.
And I did the like Michael Hartle Rails tutorial. That if folks remember, like back when Ruby was a big thing, and taught myself a little bit, and then ended up getting an internship at a tech company like 3 weeks into learning Ruby. They're like, oh, you know Ruby, right? Yeah, come on over, like work for us. And they were one of the other companies that was in Techstars. And so that's kind of how I like fell down the rabbit hole. I started really liking software development a lot more after that, really fast kind of feedback loops and everything. I switched my major one more time to electrical computer engineering. So I got to take a few software classes, but most of my engineering skills are pretty self-taught. And then I worked for a couple of startups after that. I actually worked for a venture firm and ended up doing VC for a little while, which was really interesting, kind of taking my technical background and applying it to that. Being like knowing even just enough coding to be dangerous, I still think is just this massive advantage. Like every VC has to have someone who at least like understands code a little bit. Otherwise, how are you going to vet anything? And so I got that cool gig at a VC firm, kind of learned about that side of the house. And then in early 2017, that venture fund basically wasn't raising their next fund. I had to figure out what I was going to do next. And I'd done a couple things in college, but like never really done a true startup where
Mhm.
I was doing it full time, like really making actually any revenue or anything like that. Like all the projects I'd done in college hadn't gotten that far. And so I had this idea that I just like couldn't get out of my head. I'd been using Slack a ton. This was 2017. So we started using Slack a little after it came out. And I just had always been a huge fan of Slack. I'm generally a big productivity nerd. Like
Mhm.
I love Calendly and Zapier and just any tool that like I can make an automation that saves
Yeah.
me a little bit of time down the road. I think is just the coolest thing. And so Slack to me was this like central hub where I could feed in everything I was doing. I could make like everyone who signs up for my newsletter post into this channel, and every commit that I do like post from GitHub into this channel. It was just like so great to me to be able to feed all this information in. And I was really impressed by some of the plugins in Gmail and like the ecosystem developing around Gmail. And I thought, well, I'm not using Gmail as that much anymore. Like I still use it when I have to, but most of my day I spend in Slack now. And
Mhm.
so that was the impetus for like, what if I could bring some of the ideas of what people have been building in Gmail and bring them to Slack? The original idea was there's a tool called Streak. I don't know if you've ever used
Oh
Streak
yeah.
inside of
Mhm.
Gmail. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love Streak. It's so cool. And so my original pitch was like, let's build a CRM for Slack, basically like Streak for Slack. Um, and I thought like this is gonna be so cool, and I was really excited about it. I posted on LinkedIn. I made a little wait list. Like 100 people signed up for the wait list, so other people apparently thought it was cool too. It wasn't just
Mhm.
me. I thought no one else would care. Um, After working in venture, I was definitely pretty jaded of like startups are all gonna fail and most ideas suck. Um, and I posted it, was like, no one's gonna care. A bunch of people signed up for a wait list. Through that post, one of my the guy who ended up becoming one of my co-founders actually reached out. We had kind of met a few times, but didn't know each other super well. And him and I just started hacking on Slack. So this was early 2017. We built out. It's really nice when you build on the Slack platform. I found like you don't need to be a designer because they handle all the design for you. You really
Mhm.
don't need to do like any front end at all for your initial MVPs. You can just build like a back end node thing that talks to whatever it needs to talk to and then surfaces data inside of Slack. So you're able to iterate really quickly for your initial MVPs. It would be like 3 weeks for us. We'd build something out and we'd show it to customers. So we built like a 3 week version of that CRM product and showed it to customers. And very clearly was not a real problem that people had. Like we invalidated it really quickly, which I think was a really good thing. Um, Salespeople are primarily still working in email. Most of CRM based stuff still happens in email. So having it in Slack was really actually not that valuable. And so uh, through those conversations, we kind of learned a little bit more. We actually, our second product was more of like a Slack bot for Slack communities. So
Mhm.
like the CTO.ai type of Slack community, we were like, man, people are reporting issues and bugs in some of these larger communities. Like that's where they'll end up going to report issues. Like what if we could give them a way to track their issues in the Slack community? And we
Mhm.
built out a little product for Slack communities. Turns out that when you're running a free Slack community, you don't have a ton of budget to buy Slack apps.
Yeah.
So we got like MongoDB Slack community on it, IBM's, like a bunch of pretty big ones. And they were like, yeah, this is pretty cool, but none of them were willing to pay anything for it.
Mhm.
And through that, we ended up kind of figuring out, oh, if you have customers that you're talking to in Slack, or maybe you have employees that you're talking to in Slack and they report an issue, it'd be really nice to be able to turn that into a ticket. So that sort of evolved more and more into where we've ended up. The middle ground, like sort of the first actual product we got that we had paying customers on was called Bubble IQ. And that was purely a Slack to Zendesk integration. So we
Mhm.
built a two-way Slack Zendesk integration. And if you like were escalating a ticket to an engineer, or if you were sharing channels in Slack with your customers, which is a thing that we're seeing more and more, and making tickets out of those, we basically just built like the best possible thing. If you're using Slack and Zendesk, this was going to be the tool for you. And got our first bunch of customers on that product. Got pretty it, like people really liked it. A lot of customers and users. And then through that is how we discovered where we actually landed, which is kind of the Halp product that you see today. So we didn't we started from scratch. We started building the Halp product in late 2018. It was 67 days from when we first wrote like our first line of code to when we had our first customer on that product. So we were moving super fast. We were able to get some of our old like Slack Zendesk customers to switch over to that product. And our basic insight was for the internal ticketing use case, which was sort of a segment of our customers were using it for that we were like, why are you using Zendesk as your internal ticketing tool? Like, that's super weird. And we realized, wait, there's actually not a really good internal ticketing solution on the market. The kind of big players on the market, which are Zendesk and Jira Service Desk, now Jira Service Management, were kind of designed not for that purpose. And then later on turned into, we could also use it for like IT teams if we needed to. And so we realized that if we started from the ground up and built a product specifically for that, I'm supporting internal customers, I'm supporting my employees in the questions that they have. IT is obviously a kind of the one that we all understand. Hey, my laptop's broken or I can't log into Zoom. Cool, IT helps you and they make a ticket, but it really actually applies across a bunch of other teams, a lot more teams than that, which we can talk about later. We realized that there wasn't actually a product that had been built for that use case from the ground up. And so we started building that in 2018, launched it in 2019, and got it, like, people really, really loved it. So it really took off sort of throughout the course of 2019. We got Slack as a customer themselves, as an investor and a customer, actually. So they invested in our seed round that we closed in 2019, and then they came on as a customer in July, which was huge. Just such a amazing case study to have, obviously. To have them as a customer, and then from there, things really snowballed. We started getting customers, a bunch of great Bay Area customers like GitHub and Slack. And then also just customers all over the world through the Slack App Store or through various ways that they were finding and looking for our product. And then we can I don't know, dive in wherever you think is most interesting. But in the spring of 2020, we got approached by Atlassian and then ended up getting acquired by Atlassian. So we joined Atlassian in May and have been there, I guess, 8 months now. It's been quite the ride.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one, just an incredible story. Thanks for sharing all the iterations, because I think that just shows some great transparency into like how ideas evolve and startups evolve, and they're not usually ever what they, originally exactly set out to be. So thanks for sharing that. And then two, like I'm interested in that kind of the last bit, where, how did you, find, that kind of synergy between Halp and Atlassian, and how did that kind of process work for you? Bringing the team in and understanding your kind of product vision, and how has it been 8 months later?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so as I mentioned before, our very first product was this Slack to Zendesk integration, and what we found is that integrating was a really great go-to-market strategy for us. So integrating with Zendesk got us a lot of these larger customers that already had Zendesk in place and weren't looking for a brand new ticketing solution. So we decided to also build an integration with Halp, with Zendesk, but also with Jira. So we launched our Jira integration about 6 months after we launched the product, so July of 2019. And we didn't interact with anyone at Atlassian. Like, we just built on the API. We launched in their marketplace. They have a open API and a marketplace that you can build products on. And so our approach was just build things that customers care about and prove that they care about it. We weren't like going to them and asking them for anything, or we didn't even really know anyone at Atlassian. And we saw really strong growth of that specific use case of the product, which is, I'm using Jira Service Desk, which, as I mentioned, recently rebranded to Jira Service Management, but I'm using Jira Service Desk to manage my tickets, but I'm getting all these questions in Slack and I have no way to sync those questions and track that data all in one place. And so they were buying Halp to create this great Slack experience, but continue to have all of the reporting and workflows and everything that they had on the Jira Service Desk side. And so that was happening. That was part of our go-to-market plan, was for these larger customers like Slack, who have Jira Service Desk and all this Jira infrastructure in place. We can provide them a great product experience, and they can just kind of get set up really easily and integrate and be off and running. And so Atlassian just noticed that. They were like, okay, all these customers are using this product and really like it. And they were starting to consider building out sort of a similar type product. And so they just approached us and said, okay, instead of us building out this product, what if we just acquired you? And as we got further and further in conversations, they kind of realized, oh, this isn't just a Slack app. This is actually an entirely new way for people inside companies to manage requests, and like a totally different way to think about request management and internal ticketing. And when their eyes like really opened up to that, that's when I knew that there was actually pretty good synergy around what we were doing. Everything from like the founders of Atlassian all the way down were really excited and bought into the vision that we had. So that's a big part of why we were excited to join the company, is because they had so much alignment with the long-term vision we had. We really believe that the fact that we're all now using these messaging tools like Teams and Slack so much in our day-to-day means that there's a opportunity to totally redefine the way we do work on top of those platforms. So similar to like how when email came out, that's when all these original ticketing systems were built. Things like ServiceNow and Zendesk and Jira were built on email. So when you use them, it's like there's subject lines and CCs, and like it kind of feels like you're writing an email when you're opening a ticket in Zendesk. And so our vision has always been that this new protocol, you can kind of think of like a protocol layer, like the messaging layer is this protocol layer. And this new protocol layer means that there needs to be new systems of engagement and systems of record built on top of the protocol layer. So they really aligned with our vision to do that and to build a fundamentally different way to manage these internal requests, not just for IT teams, but as I sort of mentioned, for it could be for like a DevOps team, obviously, like security team, facilities. We've even seen it used by finance teams, legal teams, all these different departments inside your company. They're really, I heard someone say the other day, like everyone provides a product. Just a question is your product customer facing or is it internal facing? Which I think is a really cool concept. Like if you're the finance team, then the product you provide is an internal product to your company to help make sure it's like the product is basically money and making sure that money is moving around inside the business and in the right way. And if you're a legal team, like you're providing the service of making sure that legal risk is low and making sure that contracts are executed. Like that is your product that you provide as a legal team, and you need to support that product. I mean, you could choose not to support it if you want to and just hope for the best, but like most likely you need to provide some level of support to your coworkers who are your customers of your product. And so that was another big part of the vision that they really aligned with, was let's provide this to not just IT teams, but to all the different departments inside an organization. And that's been great. So yeah, since we joined in May, it's been awesome. Our team was 14 people when we were acquired. Everybody came over to Atlassian. And then we've grown our engineering team quite a bit since we joined, and our whole team, but especially on the engineering side, we've added quite a large number of resources. We recently launched our Microsoft Teams integration in about a month ago, which was super exciting. So continuing to ship product, like talk to our customers and stay close to the customer is the goal. And yeah, it's just been great. Obviously get to take advantage of a lot of the like resources inside of Atlassian and the brand and the SEO and all of those good things. So.
Yeah, tell me a little bit. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the Teams. I was watching the demo of it recently. How did you think about kind of the Teams integration? You were such a Slack fan. How did that move into Teams, and then like what's next after that?
Totally, yeah. So the way I've been thinking about it lately is I really think about it very similarly to iOS and Android in the mobile space. And it's actually, I think, a really good metaphor, because what we've done is we've designed, we called it at the very beginning a Slack first experience, similar to how you might have designed a mobile first experience in 2008, 2009. It's not that our product doesn't work outside of Slack. You can use our product in our web application and it works totally great. You could email a ticket in and then you can reply to it from the web. It's that the best experience we have is by creating and managing tickets inside of Slack. So similarly, you might create a mobile first application and have the mobile first application be still works in the web, but like Robinhood, as an example, works much better on the mobile app than it does in the web app. And they didn't build the web app for quite a while. They started with just the mobile app. And so we've taken that approach. And I think that a lot more B2B products going forward are going to take that approach of being chat first or messaging first. And then the web experience being sort of like a secondary thing that you only have to go to if you need to do something that doesn't make as much sense to do in the messaging interface. So if you start with that concept of like, okay, messaging first is your design paradigm, then you have sort of these two platforms that have the majority of market share, at least as far as I can tell, which are Slack and Microsoft Teams. And the metaphor that I think is really cool is Slack is very similar to iOS and Teams is very similar to Android. So Slack has most of like the Silicon Valley and like American tech companies, and it's more of like an English speaking US based. People spend more on it. That like just the same way the Apple phones are more expensive, buying Slack is more expensive, and therefore someone who chooses to buy Slack is more likely also like a higher end buyer, somebody who's willing to spend more to get the sort of like higher quality product. Teams, on the other hand, is more of a global product. It looks like it has quite a few more users. Similar, Android actually has a lot more market share than iOS. I know it doesn't seem like that sometimes for people in the US, but Android is the global dominant mobile platform. It is people who are maybe a little more cost sensitive, a little bit less tech savvy. Like it might be folks who just were given an Android phone and they need to use it for their work or whatever. Similar to Microsoft, where with Teams, like Teams gets forced on people all the time. It's not their choice that they choose to buy it. It's pushed onto them as their thing they have to use.
Yeah.
Also, like Slack has Slack Connect, where just like blue bubbles in iMessage, where if I'm on iMessage and you're on iMessage, we're like both part of the cool kids club. That's similar to how Slack shared channels they call Slack Connect now. I'm able to connect my Slack workspace to your Slack workspace, and then we can talk together in Slack. So I think there's a ton of similarities. The similarities are also at the developer level. So Slack's APIs are amazing. They're super easy to work with. They're very developer first and developer friendly. Teams is much more old school and difficult. Documentation isn't quite as good and all that stuff, right? And so that's how we approached it, and that's probably how I'd recommend for like anybody who's building on sort of this messaging first B2B type application is start with just the same way with the mobile app. You start with iOS, start with Slack. Slack's going to be where you're going to have those like early adopters who are willing to spend a lot of money on your product. It's an easier API to develop on, but it's a limited audience. It's only going to be that sort of initial limited audience that Slack has been able to reach. It's still plenty big enough to build a big business and to build something that you can raise capital for and that you can grow quite a bit. So I think it's an amazing place to start. It's like if you're building a B2B product, a B2B startup right now, and you're not building at least some component of it in Slack, I think you're probably missing out. And then as you sort of get to scale and you have product market fit and you're looking at how you're going to grow beyond that, that's when it makes sense to add teams. So you don't want to do it too quickly and too early, because obviously then you have all this product sprawl. But we felt like we were at a good stage, obviously being inside of Atlassian and having some additional resources. And it was getting to the point where we wanted to make sure, one, that we weren't beat by a competitor or like somebody beat us there. And two, just that we increased our total available market and increased our potential for our big vision that we have, which is this sort of message first conversational ticketing experience. And so, yeah, we built on Teams. I said some negative things, obviously, like it is a slightly harder API to work with and everything, but overall, like we had a good experience. We got to work really closely with the folks at Microsoft, and we built out a product that we're super proud of. It's still early days, but we're seeing great reception from the market, and it's definitely opening us up to a much more global and different set of customers. Everything from universities to companies all over the world. So yeah, we've been super happy with that launch, and there's definitely aspects of it that are different in terms of the experience and what you're able to provide and what it actually looks like. Similar to if you're building an iOS and an Android app, there's just going to be certain interactions and things that you can only do a force touch in iOS, and you can't do that in Android. You can only do custom emojis in Slack, and there's no such thing as a custom emoji in Teams. So we did have to rethink a few of the concepts of our product, but the core idea of opening a ticket from chat, having a conversation inside of the chat product, using forms, submitting tickets with forms and all that sort of stuff, that's all the same, and it's all built into the same back end, which has been really nice. So I think we did realize a lot of the benefits that we were hoping of, like building a product that can exist on multiple chat platforms. And that kind of gets to your last part of your question, which is like, what's next? I think we're going to be a Slack and Teams only product for the foreseeable future. The good news is we've architected it to be able to support more than that for sure. But until somebody else in the market really proves that they're going to be a player that matters, that has real market share, we're not going to integrate with every single chat thing that ever exists. It's just not worth it, because we do go very deep. We do build a really rich experience for any chat platform that we integrate with, which is why people, I think, love our product. So we're not going to go super deep on something until it has enough customers for it to make sense for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know it's only been a month, but what's, on Microsoft Teams, are you seeing, is it a similar marketplace that Atlassian or Slack would have? Or how does someone find you on Microsoft Teams?
Yeah, they have their app source and the app store. So definitely seeing folks that find us through that, and are coming in through their marketplace. Their marketplaces range. It's all ties back into like the 365 ecosystem, right? So you have potential access to even a lot more customers, and they're pushing Teams hard. I mean, it is a big initiative for Microsoft right now, and so what's great is that they're willing to put a lot of resources behind it. We've done webinars with them. We've done all sorts of promotion, sort of co-promotion and partnership type promotion with Microsoft. And they're just super excited to have people building on the platform right now. And there's so much opportunity and potential. So yeah, it's a similar experience of like adding the app from the marketplace and getting promotion and stuff like that through the marketplace.
Okay, gotcha. And I know you had a brief demo. Do you want to give everyone like a peek at everything we've been talking about?
Sure. Yeah. Let me I'll show off our Slack experience really quick, just so you can see what we're talking about. Because yeah, it's more fun to see it in action.
Let me know when you're ready, and I'll pull it up.
I'm ready.
Okay.
So the way I do my demos is kind of fun. It's a side-by-side demo. So on my right side is going to be my user who has a problem, who's going to try and get it fixed. And on my left side is the user who's actually going to answer that question and resolve it. Because obviously every ticket sort of has the two sides of the equation. So I'll just show the really basic stuff here. I'm in an IT help channel in Slack. This is pretty common. We see these across most organizations. You have these Ask IT or help type channels. As I mentioned, IT is the obvious one, but there's all sorts of different ones that you can use this for. You can see here we have things like DevOps or people operations, HR, all sorts of different kind of places where people might be asking questions. And if Mike, who's our requester here, it's a Stranger Things theme demo, Mike will be our requester, and 11 will be our admin who responds to him. He pops in here and says, hey, I can't log into Zoom. Please help. At this point, this is kind of how everyone pretty much operates. They just have this channel, people post into the channel. And then what you do is you can just add the ticket emoji to their message. This is our most popular way of making a ticket. Most people are super familiar with this that use Slack. You add the emoji to the message. And what we're going to do is actually open a ticket inside the thread of this message. So you can see here, we now have an open ticket number 3577. And this thread itself is the ticket. So any comment on the thread is going to update and post the ticket. Any comment from the agent is going to post back here and notify me. On the left side now, looking at 11's screen, 11 sees this same ticket, 3577, but this is in this private channel in Slack, which is called a triage channel. This is something that we've kind of, a new concept that we've designed. It matches the way that most teams work, which is they triage these requests, but it's a private channel that only has members of the team in charge of these questions in it. And so here you can see the same ticket, but I have a bunch of other options of what I can do on it. I can edit the ticket and modify fields, change the status, take a bunch of different actions on the ticket right from here. Or I can go in and open up the thread and actually reply. So I can say, hey, Mike, did you turn it off and back on again? And when I respond here, you'll see my response syncs over here to the public channel where Mike can see it. And Mike can say, that fixed it. Thanks. And when Mike responds, his response will sync back here as well. We can also do fun things like adding a private note. If you add the lock emoji in front of your message as an agent, then this will be private and we can say, silly Mike, always doing this. And he won't see this, right? So this is only visible to the team in this private channel. I can also assign this ticket to myself, and this ticket's done now, so I can even close it out. And you'll see this ticket actually collapse here in our triage channel, and you'll see that Mike can now give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, so that we get a little feedback on the experience. So that's the basic back and forth. As you can see, I stayed inside Slack the entire time. I never had to leave. Super simple creation experience. This ticket is visible in Halp, so you can see the whole back and forth, and I can reply from the web as well. And we do have a lot of folks that prefer to triage out of a dedicated interface. But the goal is that we don't want you to have to context switch. So wherever you're working from, you can stay in that place and work from that place. If you're on your phone running around, like you have the Slack app on your phone already, and it's super easy to do. So yeah, that's the basics. I don't want to do like a full demo or anything, but that's the basics.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's cool to see. I think it's super useful to kind of also add to that context of like these internal tools of like how this is happening behind the scenes, and beyond just like your typical, let's say like, customer support ticket, like you were explaining earlier.
Yeah, it's a lot more human, right? It's like we work together. I don't just want like, we have received your ticket, thank you. Like that doesn't work.
Yeah. I like the fun like pizzazz to it too, and I feel like that's kind of very Slacky too, like you were explaining. It adds a little bit of more personality, even simple things like emojis, and like kind of continually doing small innovations on that just gives it a little bit more character than some of the kind of cut and dry, pure text or email first kind of style setups.
Yeah, I remember when Slack was first rolling out BlockKit, they changed the way that GIFs show up in like they changed them from being some special thing to being actual blocks, and our syncing of GIFs between threads stopped working. And that was like an emergency thing. Like GIFs aren't syncing. We need to fix that, like P1 bug. Let's immediately fix this thing, right? So yeah, I definitely think making things fun and like adding fun to it is a big part of our value prop.
Yeah, I like that. B1 level.
Yeah.
So you're mentioning you're kind of a productivity nerd too. One thing we always love to talk about on the show is just what's your own personal daily workflow. Some of your favorite tools. Like how do you stay efficient? How do you get into flow state? Can you share a little bit about some of those topics, and what do you do for yourself to kind of remain productive?
Yeah. I'm a big Calendly user still. So like the ad hoc meeting in Calendly has become my preferred way of scheduling meetings. You like if you have the Calendly Chrome app, you can pick a series of times and then copy paste them into an email, and then the person can just book those times.
Hmm.
So I still end up spending a lot of time like scheduling stuff with folks outside of the organization. And so that's super helpful for me to use the ad hoc Calendly scheduler. Um, is a big one for sure. We pipe freaking everything into Slack.
Hmm.
That seriously is such a big thing that I know sounds obvious, but I think even we've taken it to a whole nother level of than some other folks do. So like whenever we get a new trial, that posts to a channel, and then whenever we get a new paying customer, that posts to the same channel with like a special GIF. So via Stripe, like when you pay for Halp, you become a new paying customer, we get this little fun GIF that says like new customer X, and I think it just searches Giphy for money, and so we get all these fun gifts that pop in. I'm able to just like very easily stay up to date with what's happening in our business just by checking 3 or 4 different Slack channels that tell me like who's signing up for trials, who's converting and becoming paying customers. It's split out by teams versus Slack now, so it's really easy to see like, oh, a bunch of teams trials just came in after this promotion that we just did,
Hmm.
which is super nice. So I do think like spending the time to build some better pipes into your Slack channels and build some good culture around that is super valuable. I've been spending a lot of time in Rome lately, starting to build out more of my move a lot of my notes over into Rome Research. Rome is a note taking tool where everything is a graph as opposed to like
Hmm.
the traditional way of putting things in folders and having it be hierarchical. It allows you to basically link one page in Rome to any other page via just like a hashtag. So I can do like every person that I meet in Austin, hashtag Austin. And then I go to the Austin page and I see every time that I've mentioned Austin. And it has this like graphical view where you can basically, it feels like you're looking at your brain basically of like everything I know in this cool open sort of graph interface, and you can see where the big nodes are. Something like Austin might be a big node because I've met people there, or Boulder, where I used to live, might be a bigger node where I know a bunch of folks, and another node around Slack things or whatever it is, right? So um,
Hmm.
as I've just started to get more and more information overload, uh, the way
Hmm.
that I organize my information and knowledge, obviously we use Confluence a lot inside of Atlassian, but for my personal note taking, I've really been liking Rome. Um, I'm trying to think if there's any other cool ones I've been using. Actually, this is a random one, but I just bought this thing called Rocketbook. This is also a note taking type thing. It's a notebook that comes with like a special marker, like a dry erase type marker, and you can write actual handwritten notes on it. And then it has an app, and you scan the page with an app, and it auto sends it to different, like to Google Docs or Dropbox or your email or whatever you want it to actually send to. So it's been really nice for work from home. Like I find I'm missing the like whiteboarding sessions
Yeah,
or like
yeah,
actually writing stuff out thing. I'm just always typing. Um, so having this little notebook where I can like scratch little quick notes or like draw diagrams or whatever I want to do, and then easily just erase it. Like I don't have to worry about getting new paper or
yeah.
anything like that. So that's been another fun one. Not my traditional like cool Zapier or Workato thing that I've made is like I think the traditional stuff, but lately I've been kind of optimizing in a different way.
That's cool. No, I like that. I feel like I saw a Rocket Book or something like this a while back, and now it makes so much more sense.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and did you ever compare it to like, I don't know, let's say like drawing on an iPad Pro or something like this, or
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely thought about something like that. There is something still in my brain personally about like when I write something down and actually feel as I'm writing it, I remember it a lot better. I've learned.
mm-hmm.
It commits it to memory for me a lot more than anything digital. Even if it's an iPad and I'm using a stylus, like because I'm actually writing the thing on a piece of paper ish, or even with dry erase, I
Even over
remember it better.
typing, just writing.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think it's something I go in and out of. I feel like every like few weeks, it's like, okay, now I'm all doing a ton of to-do lists and little diagrams and things in a notebook, and then I leave it for a bit, and then I come back to it, and I'm still trying to kind of figure out. But it'd be kind of interesting to have what you're saying is like if I could actually just draw something, let's say beyond something where it's more tactile and what you're used to, then that could be an interesting way to kind of visualize things. It's just always typing, which I do happens to me quite often, and I've started to try to use Whimsical or other tools like that more often, just to see if that can kind of visualize things in a different way, more of a structure or a framework for people. So yeah, that's been
another really great tool that I think is super underrated is I'm forgetting the name. Oh, Envision Freehand. Have you ever used that?
Oh,
it's so great. So like for quick prototyping and like drawing, Envision has this freehand tool, and it like you just like draw like a diagonal thing and it makes a perfect box for you. You like draw a circle and it turns it into a perfect circle, and you can like, it's just a really nicely designed tool for doing quick mock-ups and quick sketching. We just did, Atlassian does a thing called Ship It every quarter, where everybody spends 2 days just building whatever the hell they want to build, and then there's a whole competition around it.
Oh, cool.
And we were using one of the guys on my Ship It team, one of the PMs that I work with, showed me freehand, and I was like, this is incredible. Like, I've been using Google Draw. What the heck have I been doing? This is so much better. So yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
for startup this is totally random, but if someone wants to build this, I will buy it. I want a notebook that I can write in that syncs with my digital to-do list somehow. I don't know how it exactly actually work, I guess, but like, or even like, I would even take like a tactile physical thing that has like a screen, but that like has my to-do list on it, where I can like actually like physically check things off on the thing and feel good about it, but then it syncs to a digital thing. Cause I really like the like checking things off on a list and having like a written list in front of me that I never have to like remember where it is. But then I also really like not, if I forget that thing and like have a to-do list item while I'm running around and need to pull it up on my phone, I really want to have it on my phone. So like, I don't know, it could be a sync with Todoist, or like maybe it just syncs with that and it doesn't do all the actual to-do functionality, but a physical way for me to see and like interact with my to-do list would be amazing.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. I wonder if there's some sort of integration with Evernote and pulling it. I mean, it's basically, you could use something like Rocketbook, and then you're just saying, give me like check boxes and ability to even add to it from the computer as well.
Yeah, if it could two-way sync, that'd be awesome.
And
even if it was one way. Yeah, even if it was like just from physical to the digital that it synced, that would be pretty damn good too.
Yeah. I like that idea. I'm also in on that. So, if you do find it,
two customers,
let me know. Well, cool. We're about wrapping up with time here, but any shout outs, any last words for everyone?
Thanks for having me. If folks are interested, feel free, follow me on Twitter or interact with me there. My Twitter handle is Fletcher Richman. I also have a few things on Medium that might be interesting. I wrote about the sort of Teams, Slack, Android, iOS thing on Android, if that's something that's interesting to you, as well as a guide on fundraising. So a few things on Medium and a few things. Most of my stuff on Twitter is probably actually not that exciting, but maybe I'll get there. So yeah, I would love to, like, folks that are listening, I would love to hear stories of people building cool stuff. If you want like advice about Slack related or how to build on the different platforms, I'm always happy to chat. So feel free to reach out.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, I'll drop those links too into the description. And thanks so much for coming on, Fletcher. This is really great.
Yeah, thanks, Tristan. It's fun.
All right, I'll take us out. That's it for the Op Show today. Thanks everyone for watching. Remember to hit subscribe if you want to be reminded of any of the episodes every week. Thanks.